Episode 9, Beauty and the Beasts. It's just past midnight at the end of January, and you have left the crackling fire and warm comfort of your regular pub to make the short walk home. In a small Aberdeenshire village, winter nights are often frosty and clear. Even without a few warming drams inside you, the pavements, which are sparkling with frost, can be dangerously slippery. So you take your time and step carefully. Luckily, there is a bright moon tonight, which helps light your way home. The only downside of this lunar assistance is your imagination. As a child, you had once stayed up past your bedtime and watched a movie in which a normal man was bitten by a strange wolf, and then, with the arrival of the next full moon, turned into a snarling, half-human beast. Ever since then, you can never see a full moon in the night sky without feeling that somehow there could be a terrible creature out there in the darkness. But as an adult, you reassure yourself that such notions are just childish fantasies. The glassy chill of the night air is beginning to bite through your clothing, and your breath is making steamy plumes as you finally reach the familiarity of your own street, Kirk Lane. Your cottage is the last in a small row of others at the edge of the village, sitting next to the ruins of an old church. During the day, it provides a picturesque outlook from your kitchen window, and in the summer, the churchyard is filled with wildflowers, poppies, wild roses, and wolfsbane. But tonight, in the cool light of the moon, you can see how the ground around the ruin is punctured by the carved arches and tilted crosses of ancient gravestones emerging from the ground that swallowed them. On such a night, it's all too easy to imagine a decayed hand pushing up through the soil, and then a forearm, and then... No, you tell yourself, stop being stupid. Instead, you turn your attention to the entrance to your own familiar garden. But as you approach the small gate, your eye is caught by movement at the side of your house. A robber? No, it's a large animal. At first you think the creature is perhaps a black Labrador, but then it turns its formidable head to look at you. Its eyes reflect the light of the moon, and you realise that here in the snow-covered garden, you're staring into the eyes of a strange and fearsome beast. I'm Norman Brown, and you're listening to the Scary Scotland podcast. As we know, Scotland's misty landscapes and rich folklore provide fertile ground for tales of mysterious creatures such as ghosts, vampires, and the fairy folk we've discussed in previous episodes. However, there's a different group of encounters which are equally terrifying and inexplicable. Scotland has a long history of reports of large, elusive felines, often referred to simply as big cats, which are apparently prowling the countryside. In tonight's episode, Beauty and the Beasts, we delve into the history and contemporary accounts of such sightings, exploring possible explanations ranging from escaped exotic pets to cryptids, and examine the physical evidence, legal connection, and links to Scottish legends. So find a comfortable place to relax and come with me as we go in search of some elusive creatures hiding in the beauty of Scotland. In episodes 4 and 5, we explored the dark nature of different types of fairies, or the Sidhe as they're known in Scottish mythology. Given the variety of fairies connected to all aspects of the landscape, it should come as no surprise that there is a cat Sidhe within our mythology. But this creature is much more impressive than any normal domestic cat. According to the legend, the supernatural feline can walk easily upright on two legs, much like shapeshifters, werewolves and skinwalkers in other cultures, but the cat Sidhe cunningly drops onto all fours whenever humans are in the vicinity. In terms of appearance, they are black, of course, except for the distinctive white spot on their stomach. They are reputed to be around the size of a large dog, and are considered to be malevolent in nature, even possessing the ability to steal souls. For that reason, at times of sacred importance to the Celts, such as Samhain, the ancient basis of Halloween, small offerings of milk would be left outside homes to placate the cat Sidhe, lest they steal your soul, like trick or cat treat. So it might be perfectly reasonable to expect that, like the many other fairy legends, such as the vampiric Bava She we spoke of previously, sightings of the cat she would have faded over the centuries. And yet, that has not happened. Accounts of such a creature have not gone away. They have in fact increased. Modern reports of large feline creatures in Scotland date back several decades. One of the earliest documented cases occurred almost 80 years ago, marking the beginning of a series of sightings that have continued to the present day. The 1947 big cat sighting in Scotland is recognised as one of the earliest documented reports of such phenomena in the country. While specific details about this particular instance are scarce, it holds significance as a starting point for a series of over 850 recorded sightings across the country, as compiled by respected big cat researcher Paul MacDonald. These reports, collected over the decades, indicate a consistent pattern of big cat sightings. MacDonald notes that while sightings increased notably after a change in the law in the 1970s, there were already numerous reports predating this legislation, which suggests that the presence of large non-native felines in Scotland may have multiple origins, including both escaped exotic pets, misidentified native species, and perhaps some as yet unknown creatures too. Of course, throughout the entire UK there have been countless alleged sightings of big cats, often comparable to a fully grown dog in size. But you would think that Scotland's climate and remote landscape would be inhospitable to the types of creature found in other countries, and indeed continents with warmer climates. Yet sightings of such mysterious cats are a regular occurrence in Scotland. Throughout the late 1970s, in the town of Cranach, near Loch Ness, local residents began to report seeing a big cat prowling around the landscape. The first was Jessie Chisholm, who had both seen and heard a variety of big cats near her rural cottage and in the surrounding forest. People who live in such remote areas often have farms and small holdings, and so are often aware of the threat to livestock. This makes such residents credible witnesses, as they can tell the difference between dogs and foxes or other potential predators. So when Jessie also discovered physical evidence of the big cats in the form of killed livestock, she was certain of their existence. However, as you can imagine, skeptics were quick to blame such claims on misidentification of dogs or foxes, and in an area famed for the mythical Loch Ness monster, it could possibly be a hoax too. And yet, the sightings continued. Eventually, in 1980, 4 years after the sightings began, one of Jessie's neighbours, a farmer named Ted Noble, who'd also seen such a creature matching Jessie's accounts stalking his Shetland ponies, was determined to prove the veracity of these reports. But rather than employ a night vision camera or use plaster to take moulds of paw prints, Mr. Noble decided to go much further. He decided to set a trap. Using a cage baited with sheep entrails, Noble played the nocturnal waiting game. But finally, when he approached the cage to check, he saw movement inside. What he had captured was shocking. He caught a puma. While certainly exotic, the animal bore no resemblance to the Black Panther-like creatures which had previously been spotted in the area, and there was another difference. This puma was clearly tame, and even seemed to have been pampered. Whether this particular big cat had been caught by mistake or was deliberately placed inside the trap as a hoax remains unknown. Certainly, nobody came forward to claim it, and the beautiful, friendly beast was named Felicity and was relocated to the Highland Wildlife Park. You might be tempted to believe that despite the obvious differences in appearance and behaviour, Felicity had been the source of the alleged sightings around the Loch Ness area. Well, if that had been the case, sightings might have stopped with the capturing of Felicity, but they didn't. In the years which followed, sightings of big cats continued to plague the area. This incident raises a number of pertinent questions. How many such exotic big cats are being secretly kept as pets in some of the grander homes around rural Scotland? And what happens when they get too big, or too dangerous to keep? There were numerous sightings in the years following the capture of the Highland puma, mostly involving glimpses by a solitary dog walker or farm worker, which made accounts difficult to verify. and then, 2 decades later, saw the arrival of a creature which would be known as the Beast of Benahi. It was a Thursday afternoon, just before Christmas, when Aberdeenshire bus driver Doug Riley was making his usual trip, transporting school pupils safely home along a winding rural road. The weather that afternoon was cold but clear, with a fresh dusting of snow covering the landscape. The school bus had just rounded a slow bend when Riley had to hit the brakes. Right in front of him was an exotic big cat, calmly crossing the road. The bus driver watched in disbelief as a creature which he described as beautiful in jet black loped lazily by. He instructed the children to remain in their seats, then Riley stepped off the bus and went to watch and wonder as the velvety animal made its way casually into an area of dense woodland about 40 yards from the road. When considered in relation to other similar sightings in the area, it seems likely that a big cat, or several, are living around the densely wooded hill near Aberdeen. When considered in relation to other similar sightings in the area, it seems likely that a big cat, or several, are living around the densely wooded hill in Aberdeenshire. 4 years later, in an area of Scotland more than 100 miles from Benahi, reports relating to sightings of an exotic-looking big cat around the edges of a large golf course in Fife began to appear. Witnesses had glimpsed the long-tailed spotted creature prowling around wooded areas, but occasionally crossing a fairway quite casually. The volume of sightings led to an investigation involving both police and animal welfare officers, who combed the area and eventually discovered an oversized paw print, which animal experts confirmed as being that made by a big cat, which they stated on record was most likely to be a leopard. After a similar period of time had elapsed, in Dornoch-on-Teign in 2010, police in the Highlands responded to reports relating to a large panther-type cat. Witnesses described the animal as a very large, muscular cat with a square head, and, as with other accounts, it moved in a graceful and confident way through the fields. And so the pattern continued until relatively recently, when in East Lothian in August 2022, a woman spotted a large panther near Pentcaitland. The creature was described as puma-sized, and photographs were even taken to document the sighting and prove her claims. So it seems clear that this phenomenon shows no sign of going away anytime soon. In 2024, there were approximately 1,300 sightings in Britain, and according to the British Big Cat Society, there are currently potentially between 50 and 100 exotic cats across the UK. Local authorities have even been occasionally forced to issue warnings to the public relating to the threat. Therefore, it's beyond question that Scotland is home to a variety of exotic big cats, but it raises a fundamental question of what could explain this phenomenon, and the answer is down to one thing: fashion. Across the UK, during the Georgian era, from 1714 to 1830, there was a period of immense social and economic change. The Industrial Revolution and the expansion of the British Empire created immense wealth in the upper tiers of society. It also created stronger connection between the UK and the rest of the world. The sudden increase in wealth resulted in greater levels of opulence and decadence, and consequently, people became desperate to display their wealth. You would be familiar with images of comical-looking paintings of important people from that period, festooned with fine garments, makeup, and wearing oversized powdered wigs. This was the era of the 18th century Kardashians. But the showcasing of wealth did not stop at personal fashion choices. It extended to impressive homes and gardens, both of which soon began to include exotic flora and fauna, ranging from fish to birds to reptiles and big cats. And the showcasing of exotic animals at dinner parties were not merely novelties, they were clear status symbols, and it was not unusual to have dinner guests sharing their table with primates, parrots, or big cats. The subsequent advent of the Victorian era, which saw a boom in steam trains and ships, and fascination with the natural sciences, brought even more, and indeed larger animals from around the world to the UK. Throughout this time, London, the beating heart of the empire, was the epicentre of the fascination with and trade in exotic animals, with numerous menageries and pet shops on every other street. One infamous menagerie, which was owned and operated by Charles Christian Jamrach, was located conveniently in Bett Street near London's docks, and was particularly ambitious in the range and scale of the dislocated animals it presented to the public. The law at the time could not keep up with such rapidly changing markets, which meant there was little need for those trading in exotic animals to consider the risk to animals, customers, or the general public. This risk is perhaps best illustrated when on one occasion a newly arrived Bengal tiger escaped its dockside prison and seized a young boy in its jaws. Jamrach wasted no time in leaping on the back of the escapee, fighting it with nothing more than a crowbar, and unbelievably rescuing the boy and recapturing his tiger. Yet this shocking incident did little to quell the public appetite for exotic creatures. In truth, it probably increased it. The interest in exotic animals spread to the rest of the UK, including Scotland. You can still see the cultural remnants of this in the grandeur of Edinburgh Zoo and Natural History Museum, where animals, living and dead, thrilled Scottish visitors. And so, for nearly 200 years, until the outbreak of World War I interrupted the trade, the grand houses sprinkled throughout Scotland were home to countless numbers of exotic animals, but predominantly big cats, and at least some of them would have been breeding pairs, which would have negated the need for endless purchases of further specimens. But the ownership of such animals abruptly ended in the 1970s with a change to the law. The Dangerous Wild Animals Act of 1976 significantly impacted on the ownership of exotic animals in the UK. Prior to this act, owning big cats like pumas or leopards was quite legal, and the creatures were considered to be little more than possessions. However, this change in legislation suddenly required owners to obtain licenses and provide appropriate secure enclosures for their animals. For some people, especially those with numerous exotic pets, the costs and modifications to their property was not an option. So they instead chose to release their animals into the wild to avoid compliance, and also avoid the real possibility that their animal would be confiscated or destroyed. There's no way to know for sure how many big cats might have been released, but the circumstantial evidence seems to strongly suggest that many were, and some of them reproduced. Ultimately, the enduring reports of mysterious big cats in Scotland clearly represents a complex interplay of folklore, historical events, and contemporary sightings. While some cases have provided physical evidence, many remain unverified, feeding speculation and intrigue. Undoubtedly, the introduction of the Dangerous Wild Animals Act and its unintended consequences may explain some of the phenomena, but the cultural backdrop of Scottish legends further enriches the narrative, connecting modern sightings to ancient tales. Hopefully, as investigations continue and more data is collected, our understanding of these elusive creatures may become clearer, blending the lines between myth and reality. But there is one final aspect to all of these feline facts. Even in the absence of liberated exotic pets, Scotland is still home to an elusive native who may be connected to at least some of these strange feline sightings. The Kellis cat is a large black feline, resulting from a hybrid between the Scottish wildcat and domestic cats. Although it was initially thought to be mythical, a specimen of the Kellis cat was captured in 1984, providing physical evidence of its existence. This unique cat is believed by some to have inspired the legend of the cat she we discussed earlier, but given the nebulous origins of ancient myths, no one knows for sure. So my advice would be this: err on the side of caution. If you are ever in Scotland and find yourself wandering through the beautiful Highlands, and up ahead on the track you see a strange looking cat, perhaps larger than normal, by all means stop to admire it. But if you see it lazily stretch, and then stand up to walk boldly towards you on two legs, run away, because it may be that a cat she has come to take your soul. I'm Norman Brown. Thank you for sharing your company this evening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and follow the show on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, or whichever platform you use. A new episode will drop every fortnight, so there will be many more scary stories to explore. Tonight's episode, Beauty and the Beasts, included information from highlandlife.com, historythroughfiction.com, folklorescotland.com, and mentalfloss.com. Music was by Alfra Grubstra of A Creative Journey, PG Richmond of Creative Audio, and additional sounds were supplied by the Free Sound community, all of whom you'll find over amongst the kind contributors on Pixabay. As for you, the listener, I appreciate your company. And stay scared.